Our spark of intrigue. What if the next Mona Lisa was painted by an algorithm? In this opening chapter, we step into the breathtaking, unsettling arrival of AI art and explore the reactions it has stirred around the world. What if the next Mona Lisa was painted by an algorithm? That question may sound absurd, almost like something out of a science fiction novel, but it is not fiction anymore. The future of art is here, and it is powered by artificial intelligence. In recent years, we have watched machines generate paintings that resemble the great masters, produce surreal dreamscapes that no human hand could easily conjure, and even win prizes in art competitions. At first glance, it looks like magic, but beneath the stunning visuals lies a complex web of ethical dilemmas, social debates, and philosophical questions that strike at the very heart of what it means to be creative. Today, we are going to unravel surprising truths and unforeseen challenges that emerge when creativity meets artificial intelligence. When people first encountered AI-generated art, their reactions were explosive. Fear, confusion, excitement, suspicion, a swirl of emotions that perfectly reflected the uncertainty of our times. Imagine scrolling through social media, and suddenly, you see an image so realistic, so beautiful, that you cannot believe a human did not make it. That is the power of today's AI tools. Platforms like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, and Adobe Firefly allow anyone, with just a sentence or two, to summon entire universes of imagery. A person can type, "a futuristic city painted in the style of Monet," and within seconds, a detailed canvas appears. The simplicity of the input compared to the complexity of the output feels almost supernatural. Yet behind this apparent miracle lies mathematics, data, and algorithms running through billions of parameters trained on immense datasets. For those who have not tried these tools, it is difficult to describe the sensation. The first time someone uses Midjourney, for instance, they type in a phrase, perhaps an astronaut riding a horse through a neon desert, and then they watch as an image gradually emerges on the screen. The computer builds it in layers, adding strokes of color, refining shapes, clarifying details. By the time it finishes, the image looks like something a professional digital artist might have spent hours or days crafting, but it appeared in under a minute. That shock, that sudden realization of power is what has drawn millions of people into experimenting with AI art. News headlines quickly picked up on the phenomenon. Stories of AI artworks winning state fair competitions, AI portraits selling at Christie's for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and AI illustrations flooding online communities started to dominate cultural conversations. People could not believe that code could rival centuries of artistic tradition. Some hailed it as democratization. Anyone, regardless of skill, could now express themselves visually. Others saw it as a threat. If a machine can generate art faster, cheaper, and in infinite variety, what happens to the livelihood of human artists? This question cannot be ignored. The ethical quandaries that surround AI art go far beyond simple curiosity. They cut to the core of ownership, originality, and respect for human labor. When a neural network creates a painting, who actually owns it? Is it the programmer who designed the model, the user who typed the prompt, or the countless anonymous artists whose works were used to train the algorithm? Each possibility carries consequences, and none are easy to resolve. Consider copyright. Traditional copyright law was built on the assumption that art is the product of human creativity. If I draw a picture, the law recognizes me as the author and grants me rights. But what if I click a button and a machine outputs something that looks like my drawing, only more polished? Do I own it because I clicked the button? Or does nobody own it, because a non-human entity produced it? Courts around the world are struggling with this question. In the United States, the Copyright Office has rejected applications for works generated entirely by AI, stating that only human authors can claim rights. In contrast, some jurisdictions are exploring new categories of intellectual property that might accommodate machine-assisted creation. But the lack of global consistency leaves artists, companies, and enthusiasts in limbo. The debate grows more heated when we talk about training data. To teach an AI to generate images, developers feed it vast libraries of existing art. These libraries often include millions of pictures scraped from the internet, illustrations, photographs, digital paintings, and more. Among them are the works of countless artists who never consented for their art to be used this way. Their distinctive styles, carefully developed over years of practice, become part of the machine's learning process. This raises an uncomfortable question: is the AI plagiarizing? Or is it simply learning? In the same way a student studies the masters to improve their own craft, the distinction between inspiration and exploitation is blurry, and many artists feel violated. They argue that their creative labor is being repurposed without permission, without credit, and without compensation. Bias adds another layer of complexity. Just as AI systems in other fields have been found to replicate harmful stereotypes, AI art generators are not immune. If the training data contains cultural prejudices, gender imbalances, or narrow representations of beauty, the AI will reproduce them. A simple prompt like, "a beautiful woman," overwhelmingly produce images of a particular ethnicity or body type, reflecting hidden biases in the data. Left unchecked, this can perpetuate harmful standards and erase diversity rather than celebrate it. At this point, we must pause and reflect. How do we, as a society, navigate this creative minefield? To answer that, we need to look at the people most directly impacted, the artists themselves. Some artists see AI as a revolutionary tool. They describe it as a new brush, a new camera, a new instrument for expression. Instead of replacing their creativity, they use it to extend their reach. A digital painter may generate dozens of variations of a concept sketch with AI, then refine one into a finished piece. A filmmaker might use AI-generated storyboards to accelerate the planning process. A fashion designer could explore endless combinations of fabrics, patterns, and cuts before committing to a prototype. In these cases, AI becomes a collaborator, expanding what is possible rather than narrowing it. But not all artists feel the same. Many see AI art as devaluing their craft. Why spend years mastering anatomy, color theory, and composition if someone with no training can type a few words and get a comparable result? For them, the rise of AI art feels like an existential threat. Communities that once celebrated hard-earned skill now find themselves flooded with newcomers who can produce images in seconds. The sense of pride, identity, and livelihood tied to art is shaken. History gives us perspective. When photography emerged in the 19th century, painters worried it would make them obsolete. After all, why hire a portrait artist if a camera could capture your likeness more accurately and cheaply? Yet painting did not die. It evolved. Impressionism, abstract art, surrealism, entire movements blossomed precisely because photography freed painters from the burden of realism. They could explore imagination, emotion, and abstraction in ways photography could not. The same may be true today. AI might not kill art, but it may transform it, pushing human creativity into new realms we cannot yet predict. Still, transformation requires safeguards. If we want a future where AI and humans coexist creatively, we must build systems that protect artists and ensure fairness. Transparency is key. Models should disclose what datasets they were trained on, and artists should have the right to opt out of having their work included. Compensation models could ensure that if an AI profits from styles heavily influenced by a particular creator, that creator receives recognition or payment. Regulations may need to evolve, not to stifle innovation, but to prevent exploitation. Solutions are already being proposed. Some companies are developing AI trained only on licensed or open-source imagery. Others are exploring attribution systems that tag outputs with references to the original influences. Governments are holding hearings on intellectual property and AI, while advocacy groups call for stronger protections. The challenge is immense, but ignoring it is not an option. Looking forward, we face even more profound questions. What will AI art look like in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years? Today, AI primarily imitates human styles. But as the technology advances, it could develop aesthetics that are not recognizably human at all. Entire new genres may emerge. Colors, forms, and structures we cannot even imagine. Will we recognize those creations as art, or dismiss them as mechanical outputs? And if machines can create works that move us emotionally, that make us cry, laugh, or feel awe, does it matter that they are not human? Philosophers have long debated what defines art. Some argue that art requires intention, that the artist must have a conscious purpose. Others focus on the experience of the viewer. If something provokes meaning, then it is art, regardless of who or what made it. AI forces us to revisit these debates with urgency. When an algorithm paints a picture that makes you weep, is it merely executing code, or has it touched upon something universal in the human spirit? This is not just an intellectual exercise. The stakes are real. Art shapes culture, culture shapes identity, and identity shapes how we live together as a society. If machines become creators, they will influence the collective imagination of humanity. That is why we must all engage with these questions. Not just artists and engineers, but everyone who values creativity and human expression. So let us return to that opening question. What if the next Mona Lisa was painted by an algorithm? Perhaps it already has been, though it hangs not in a museum, but in the digital corridors of the internet. The answer to whether it is truly art lies not in the machine, but in us. Do we choose to embrace it, to question it, to shape it responsibly, or do we allow it to unfold unchecked, leaving behind those whose labor and creativity made it possible in the first place? The journey into AI art has only begun. This is merely the first chapter, the first hour of exploration. Ahead of us lie deeper ethical dilemmas, richer stories of human struggle and adaptation, and imaginative horizons that stretch far beyond what we can currently conceive. The revolution is here. The question is, how will we respond? Our spark of intrigue. We've seen how AI art burst into the world and sparked awe and controversy. Next, we'll peel back the curtain to see how these systems actually work. Our mechanics behind the magic. Now that we've seen AI art's impact, let's uncover how it actually works. Behind the magic are algorithms, datasets, and controversies that shape what we see. When people encounter AI art for the first time, they often describe the experience as both thrilling and unsettling. There is a sense of witnessing something impossible, like watching a magician pull endless images out of thin air. Yet behind the spectacle lies a chain of human effort. The engineers who designed the algorithms, the artists whose works were absorbed as training material, the communities that shaped the cultural context. To understand where AI art is heading, we must go deeper into how these systems actually work, because the mechanics themselves reveal the ethical puzzles we face. At its core, most AI art tools today rely on a technique known as diffusion. Imagine starting with a canvas covered in random static, like television noise. The AI is trained to gradually transform that chaos into an image that matches a written prompt. Step by step, the noise fades, forms emerge, colors solidify, and details sharpen, until what was once meaningless becomes meaningful. This process mimics, in a strange way, how artists themselves sometimes work, beginning with rough sketches, then layering and refining until the final vision emerges. The difference is that while an artist works from intuition, the AI works from statistical patterns learned from billions of images. The training process is vast. Developers feed the model enormous datasets of existing art and photographs. Each image is paired with descriptive text, teaching the AI to associate words with visual patterns. Over time, the AI learns that the word cat correlates with pointed ears, whiskers, and certain body shapes. It learns that sunset often means gradients of orange, pink, and purple blending across a horizon. When asked to generate a cat at sunset, the AI combines these learned patterns into something new. It does not copy directly, but it draws upon the statistical echoes of countless examples. Herein lies the first great debate. Is this process creative? Some say no, the AI is merely remixing what already exists. Others argue that creativity has always involved remixing. Shakespeare borrowed plots, jazz musicians riff on existing chords, painters reinterpret older works. If humans are allowed to create from influence, why not machines? Yet the counterpoint is sharp. Humans experience intention, emotion, and lived reality. Machines do not. The distinction between inspiration and plagiarism may be clear for people, but with machines, the boundary blurs. Real-world controversies highlight the stakes. In 2022, an AI-generated image won a blue ribbon at a state fair art competition. The judges did not know it was AI-made until after awarding the prize. When the truth emerged, outrage erupted. Some argued that the win was dishonest, since the person submitting the work had not painted it by hand. Others defended it, saying the artistry lay in crafting the right prompts and guiding the AI. The incident forced everyone to confront the question: what counts as authorship? Another controversy came when stock image platforms began accepting AI-generated works. Traditional illustrators who once earned a living selling unique graphics suddenly found themselves competing with a flood of machine-made images that could be produced in minutes. Prices dropped, demand shifted, and many felt their profession slipping away. The imbalance between effort and reward became painfully obvious. For an illustrator, a single piece might take days. For an AI, thousands can be generated in an afternoon. It is important here to remember that disruption is not new to the arts. The printing press once threatened scribes, photography challenged painters, and digital cameras shook film photography. Each time, the art world adapted, but the pace of change with AI is unprecedented. Whereas previous technologies took decades to transform industries, AI evolves in months, sometimes weeks. The velocity of change leaves little time for adaptation. Public reactions mirror this tension. On one side, enthusiasts celebrate the democratization of art. They argue that creativity should not be limited by skill, and that AI allows anyone to visualize their imagination. On the other side, professionals feel devalued, their years of practice overshadowed by a tool that can replicate the surface of mastery without the depth of experience. Social media has become a battleground where AI art is alternately praised as the future and condemned as theft. To make sense of this divide, we can turn to the stories of individual artists. Consider the painter who uses AI to brainstorm ideas. She types a phrase, sees dozens of visual possibilities, and then paints her own interpretation. For her, AI is like a sketchbook filled with infinite inspirations. Now consider the freelance illustrator who discovers that an AI has replicated his style so closely that clients no longer hire him. For him, AI is not a tool, but a thief. Both experiences are real, both matter, and both reveal that the impact of AI art is not uniform. It depends on context, purpose, and perspective. The ethical issues stretch even further when we consider representation. If the majority of training data is sourced from Western art traditions, then the AI may prioritize certain aesthetics while underrepresenting others. A prompt for traditional wedding clothing may overwhelmingly produce images of Western gowns and tuxedos, marginalizing cultural diversity. This matters because art does not just entertain. It shapes perception, identity, and cultural memory. If AI outputs are biased, they risk reinforcing narrow worldviews at a massive scale. Some argue that bias is not intentional, it is simply a reflection of the data. But that is precisely the problem. If the data mirrors societal imbalances, the AI becomes a mirror that magnifies rather than corrects them. Left unchecked, this can perpetuate exclusion under the guise of creativity. Imagine a young artist of color seeking representation in AI-generated imagery, only to find that their culture barely exists in the outputs. That absence is not neutral, it is harmful. Solutions are beginning to emerge. Some developers are building tools that allow users to guide AI toward more diverse outputs, or to include specific cultural datasets. Others are creating opt-out systems where artists can request their works not be used in training. Yet these are early steps, and the scale of the challenge is immense. Training data often spans billions of images, many scraped without consent. Tracking and compensating every contributor is a monumental task, but monumental does not mean impossible. Just as music eventually developed licensing systems for samples, the art world may need new frameworks for AI training. As the debates rage, one truth remains clear. AI art is not going away. The genie is out of the bottle. The question is no longer whether machines can create images, but how society will handle the consequences. Will we build systems of fairness, or allow exploitation to fester? Will we celebrate AI as a tool for collaboration, or fear it as a replacement? The answers will shape not just the future of art, but the values of our culture. This is why conversations around AI art are so essential. They are not abstract. They affect livelihoods, identities, and the meaning of creativity itself. By engaging deeply with these issues now, we give ourselves a chance to steer the future. If we remain passive, the future will be decided for us by corporations, algorithms, and market forces indifferent to human dignity. Art has always been more than decoration. It is how we express who we are, how we remember, how we dream. To let machines take part in that process is to alter the very fabric of human expression. That alteration may bring wonders. It may also bring wounds. But either way, it will define our era. So the challenge before us is not to resist AI art outright, nor to embrace it blindly, but to engage with it thoughtfully, to ask the hard questions, to demand accountability, to explore possibilities with curiosity while guarding against harm. Only then can we move forward into a future where creativity thrives, human, machine, and everything in between. Our mechanics behind the magic. Now, we understand the process behind the images, but knowledge only deepens the tension. In the next chapter, we step into the lives of artists caught in the middle of this revolution. Artists in the crossfire. AI art isn't just about technology, it's about people. Here we listen to the stories of artists navigating fear, opportunity, and identity in a transformed creative landscape. The conversation about AI art often begins with fascination, but quickly moves into fear. People marvel at the beauty, the speed, the impossibility of what machines can conjure, but then unease sets in. What does this mean for jobs, for culture, for the identity of an artist? These are not simple questions, and to tackle them, we need to slow down and truly explore the layers of this revolution. Consider the daily life of a working artist before AI became mainstream. A freelance illustrator might spend hours sketching, drafting, revising, and finalizing a piece for a client. They negotiate contracts, chase invoices, and fight for recognition in a crowded marketplace. Now imagine that same client discovering that they can type a short description into an AI program and receive dozens of polished illustrations instantly. The artist, who once held expertise and scarcity as leverage, suddenly faces an economy of abundance. The sense of scarcity that once protected their livelihood evaporates. This shift is not theoretical. It is already happening. Yet the disruption is not evenly distributed. Large corporations with resources may adopt AI to cut costs, replacing some tasks that were once contracted to artists. Independent creators, however, sometimes find new opportunities. A small business owner who could never afford a designer can now experiment with visuals, bringing their vision to life with AI assistance. A filmmaker with a limited budget can storyboard entire scenes at no extra cost. In this way, AI expands access, giving voice to people who were previously excluded from the visual conversation. But this very expansion fuels the tension. One person's liberation can be another person's loss. The paradox becomes clear when we think about the concept of democratization. Supporters of AI art often say, now everyone can be an artist. On the surface, this sounds inspiring. Who would not want more creativity in the world? But to professionals, this statement carries a hidden insult. If everyone is an artist, then perhaps artist ceases to mean what it once did. Skill, discipline, and sacrifice blur into something accessible with the push of a button. This does not diminish the joy of self-expression, but it changes the cultural weight of artistic identity. To illustrate, imagine a future classroom where students are asked to create a painting. Some pick up brushes, others use tablets, and many simply type prompts into an AI generator. The results are all hung on the wall side by side. Which works are praised? Which are ignored? If the AI-generated pieces look more polished, will the effort of the hand-painted ones still be valued? Over time, such dynamics could reshape how we teach, how we evaluate, and even how we dream about art. But not all comparisons are bleak. History shows us that every new medium has provoked similar anxieties. When synthesizers became popular in music, traditional musicians accused them of cheapening sound. When photography emerged, painters worried their craft was obsolete. Yet, in both cases, art evolved. Synthesizers gave us entire genres like electronic music, and photography eventually became its own art form, with techniques and philosophies unique to the medium. Perhaps AI will follow a similar path, not destroying art, but diversifying it, birthing styles and methods unimaginable before. Still, the ethical concerns remain thorny. One of the most pressing is attribution. If an AI produces an image in the style of Van Gogh, we know it is borrowing from a long-dead master, whose works are in the public domain. But what if the AI produces something in the style of a living digital artist, whose unique aesthetic is suddenly diluted across thousands of machine-made imitations? This is not just theoretical. Many artists have already seen their signature styles replicated by AI without consent. Their frustration is not simply financial, but deeply personal. Style, after all, is a fingerprint of identity. To see it copied endlessly by an algorithm feels like losing a part of oneself. The law is scrambling to catch up. In the United States, lawsuits have been filed against AI companies for allegedly infringing on copyrights. Getty Images has taken legal action against Stability AI, accusing it of misusing millions of photographs. Individual artists have joined class action suits, demanding accountability for the unlicensed use of their works. Courts now face questions they were never designed to answer. Can a dataset itself be copyrighted? Does statistical learning count as theft? At what point does influence become infringement? These are not only legal puzzles, but cultural ones, because how we answer them will determine the boundaries of creative ownership in the digital age. The conversation is not confined to courtrooms. Artists themselves are debating among each other. Some embrace AI tools, finding ways to integrate them into their process. They argue that fighting the tide is futile, and that adaptation is the only path forward. Others call for boycotts, urging peers not to use AI art platforms at all, viewing participation as complicity in exploitation. Online forums and communities are full of heated exchanges where emotions run high. Some accuse others of betrayal, while others advocate for open-minded exploration. This division reveals how unsettled the artistic community is, not united against AI, but fractured into camps of resistance, acceptance, and reluctant compromise. We should also consider the role of audiences. After all, art is not only made by artists, but also consumed by viewers. When the public encounters AI art, do they care about the process, or only the result? Many casual viewers, when shown a beautiful AI-generated image, express admiration without concern for who made it. They judge the piece by how it looks, not how it was produced. For professional artists, this is a bitter pill to swallow. Years of training may no longer guarantee appreciation if audiences value outcomes over effort. Yet audiences are not monolithic. Some art enthusiasts deliberately seek out human-made works, cherishing the imperfections and authenticity that machines cannot replicate. The future of appreciation may depend on how these preferences shift and solidify. To deepen this reflection, imagine standing in a gallery. On one wall hangs a breathtaking portrait made entirely by AI. On the other hangs a portrait painted by a human hand. Both are equally stunning. If you did not know which was which, could you tell? And if you could not, does it matter? Does the knowledge of authorship affect the emotional weight of the art? For some, yes. They feel that human intention is inseparable from meaning. For others, no, they argue that the experience of beauty stands on its own, regardless of origin. Beyond aesthetics, there is also a psychological impact. Artists who feel displaced by AI sometimes report feelings of despair, anxiety, and identity loss. To dedicate one's life to a craft and then watch a machine reproduce it effortlessly can trigger existential questions. Who am I as an artist? What value does my work hold? These are not abstract concerns, but deeply human struggles. Addressing them requires empathy as much as policy. If society wishes to embrace AI art, it must also find ways to support the emotional well-being of those who feel left behind. And yet, amidst the turmoil, there is also hope. Some artists report that AI rekindled their passion. Burned out from years of creative pressure, they found joy in experimenting with prompts, rediscovering the thrill of visual play. Others say AI allowed them to collaborate across disciplines, musicians generating visuals, writers illustrating stories, filmmakers exploring concept art at a speed never before possible. For these creators, AI is not a replacement, but a companion, an ally in the eternal search for expression. Ultimately, the story of AI art is not one of machines alone, but of humans responding to machines. How we choose to engage, resist, adapt, or innovate will shape the narrative. The technology is powerful, but it does not determine meaning on its own. Meaning arises from how we use it, what values we prioritize, and how we choose to treat one another in the process. This is the challenge and the opportunity of our time. The AI art revolution forces us to confront not only technological change, but cultural identity. It asks us to define, with urgency, what we value in creativity, fairness, and human dignity. And it offers us the chance, if we are thoughtful, to build a future where art is richer, more diverse, and more inclusive than ever before. But that future will not happen by accident. It must be shaped, debated, and fought for. And the fight has only just begun. Artists in the crossfire, artists stand divided between opportunity and loss, hope and despair. Let's now ask a deeper question. What truly makes something art in the first place? Defining art in an algorithmic age, what truly makes something art? This chapter takes us into the philosophical heart of the debate, where intention, authenticity, and audience collide. The debate around AI art often circles back to a deceptively simple question: what makes something art? For centuries, philosophers, critics, and creators have wrestled with this question, and every era has offered different answers. In the Renaissance, art was often defined by mastery of realism and technique. In the modern era, movements like abstract expressionism challenged that notion, suggesting that raw emotion or conceptual depth mattered more than technical skill. With the arrival of AI, the debate intensifies, because now, we must ask if art requires a human at all. Some argue that art demands intention. A painting is not merely pigments on canvas. It is an expression of thought, feeling, and purpose. If a machine cannot intend, then perhaps its outputs, no matter how striking, are not truly art. Others counter that intention is overrated. They say that what matters most is the experience of the viewer. If an AI-generated image makes someone feel awe, sorrow, or joy, then it has fulfilled art's purpose, regardless of whether intention was involved. This tension between artist-centered and audience-centered definitions has never been more urgent than it is now. One way to approach the problem is through analogy. Think of nature, a breathtaking sunset, a delicate crystal formation, the intricate patterns of frost on a window. None of these are created with conscious intention. Yet humans often describe them as beautiful, even artistic. People write poems about sunsets, compose music inspired by rivers, and photograph mountains as if they were masterpieces. If we can ascribe artistic value to natural processes, why not to artificial ones? Is there truly a fundamental difference between a glacier carving a landscape and an algorithm sculpting pixels into an image? Yet others insist the difference is essential. Nature may not have intention, but it is not human-made either. It exists outside us, indifferent to our recognition. AI, by contrast, is a human creation, a tool built by engineers to mimic creativity. To call its outputs art may blur the line between authentic human expression and the reproduction of patterns by a machine. In this view, granting the title of art to AI risks diluting the meaning of the word, reducing it to surface-level aesthetics detached from lived experience. These abstract debates quickly collide with practical realities. In galleries and online marketplaces, AI works already coexist with human-made art. Collectors and casual buyers alike are making choices. Some are drawn to the novelty of AI pieces, eager to own a slice of technological history. Others remain committed to supporting human creators, seeing their purchase as not just aesthetic, but ethical. The market, in other words, is becoming a silent battlefield where values are expressed through wallets. This raises another pressing question. How will art education evolve in an AI-dominated age? Imagine a generation of students who grow up with AI as a normal part of their creative process. Instead of learning to sketch slowly by hand, they may learn to craft prompts, curate outputs, and refine results with digital tools. Will traditional training fade into a niche specialty, or will it remain the foundation upon which all other skills are built? Teachers face a difficult balance: how to honor centuries of artistic discipline while also preparing students for a world where algorithms are collaborators. Some schools are already experimenting. Workshops combine prompt writing with critical analysis, teaching students not only how to generate images, but also how to question the ethics behind them. Assignments might ask, create an AI-generated piece, then reflect on whose work might have influenced it, and discuss whether it feels ethically comfortable to you. In this way, education becomes not only about making art, but about cultivating awareness. Perhaps the future artist will be less of a solitary craftsman and more of a curator, philosopher, and guide, someone who directs machines while grounding the process in human values. But even as education adapts, the professional landscape continues to shift. Entire industries that once relied on visual artists now face disruption. Advertising, gaming, publishing, fashion, all of these fields are experimenting with AI-generated visuals. Concept art that once required weeks of labor can now be prototyped in hours. Marketing campaigns can generate endless variations of images tailored to different audiences. Fashion brands can visualize new designs before a single stitch is sewn. The efficiency is staggering, and businesses are eager to embrace it. Yet in the rush to innovate, ethical questions often take a back seat. Consider the fashion industry. Designers are now using AI to create collections that blend styles across cultures and time periods. A dress inspired by both medieval armor and futuristic cyberpunk can appear in minutes. This sparks creativity, but also raises concerns about cultural appropriation. If an AI borrows patterns from indigenous traditions without acknowledgement or respect, is it perpetuating exploitation in a new form? In industries where representation and cultural sensitivity matter deeply, these issues cannot be ignored. Gaming offers another fascinating case. Video games have long required armies of artists to design characters, landscapes, and props. With AI, developers can accelerate this process dramatically. But will this reduce opportunities for entry-level artists who once cut their teeth on smaller projects? Or will it free human artists to focus on the most meaningful, imaginative aspects, while machines handle the repetitive work? The answer may depend less on the technology itself, and more on how companies choose to integrate it. One thing is certain: the conversation about AI art cannot remain confined to creators and corporations. Society at large must decide how to value and regulate this new form of expression. Should AI works be labeled clearly so audiences know their origin? Should there be royalties for artists whose styles were used in training? Should there be legal recognition of prompt writers as authors, or are they merely operators? Each decision will set precedents that ripple far into the future. It is worth pausing here to recognize how monumental this moment is. Humanity has always created tools, from brushes to cameras to computers, but those tools were extensions of our bodies and minds. AI feels different because it simulates the act of creation itself. It is no longer just a tool. It is a partner, a competitor, sometimes even a rival. That shift challenges not only industries, but identities. To call oneself an artist in the age of AI may mean something very different than it did even a decade ago. And yet, within the unease lies a profound opportunity. If we embrace AI thoughtfully, we can expand human creativity rather than diminish it. We can use machines to generate possibilities we would never have imagined, then interpret, refine, and contextualize them with human depth. We can build systems that honor the labor of past artists while opening doors for future ones. The future is not predetermined. It will be shaped by our choices, our ethics, and our courage to confront difficult questions. So as we step further into this revolution, we must keep asking, what is art? Who gets to decide? And how do we ensure that in amplifying creativity, we do not lose sight of the very humanity that makes art meaningful in the first place? Defining art in an algorithmic age, the meaning of art has always shifted, and AI forces us to question it again. Next, we'll look at how humans are adapting emotionally and professionally to this seismic change. Our human struggle and adaptation, behind the headlines are human lives. We'll explore the emotional toll of AI art, the resilience of creators, and the new skills emerging in this evolving era. The deeper we go into the world of AI art, the clearer it becomes that this is not just a technological story, but a human one. Every new invention brings with it not only capabilities, but consequences, and in the case of AI art, those consequences reach into culture, economics, psychology, and even spirituality. To understand where we stand, let us step into the perspectives of the artists themselves, those who are embracing, resisting, or struggling to reconcile with this transformation. Picture the painter who has spent decades perfecting brushwork. Each stroke represents hours of practice, each canvas a record of patience, failure, and breakthrough. One morning, she scrolls online and sees an AI image imitating her style, produced in less than a minute by someone who typed a prompt. The shock is not only about money or credit, but about dignity. For her, it is a lifelong journey, a discipline, a sacred practice. To see it mimicked effortlessly feels like erasure. She wonders, will future generations value mastery, or will speed and spectacle become the new standard? Now picture another artist, perhaps a digital illustrator, who has always dreamed beyond their technical abilities. They imagine complex futuristic cities or surreal hybrid creatures, but lack the skills to render them convincingly. For this artist, AI is liberation. It allows them to materialize visions that once lived only in their imagination. Instead of replacing their creativity, it extends it. They spend hours refining prompts, combining outputs, layering edits, until the final piece becomes a genuine collaboration between human intuition and machine possibility. For them, AI is not the end of artistry, but a new beginning. Between these two extremes lies a wide spectrum. Some artists adopt AI cautiously, using it for brainstorming, but refusing to present AI outputs as finished works. Others reject it outright, refusing even to experiment, feeling that doing so legitimizes exploitation. Still, others embrace it wholeheartedly, merging it seamlessly into their process. This diversity of responses shows that AI art is not one thing, but many things at once: a threat, a tool, a muse, and a mirror. It is worth remembering that technology has always redefined what it means to be an artist. Centuries ago, apprentices ground pigments, stretched canvases, and copied masters. Their labor was essential, yet history rarely remembers their names. When photography arrived, portrait painters lost much of their market, but painting itself evolved into realms photography could not reach. When digital software emerged, some traditionalists dismissed it as not real art. Today, Photoshop and digital illustration are recognized as legitimate mediums. AI may follow the same arc, controversial at first, then gradually accepted, then woven into the fabric of artistic practice. Still, we must confront the darker side of this evolution. Many artists speak of anxiety and burnout. Social media already created an environment of constant comparison, where likes and shares became measures of worth. Now AI intensifies the pressure. Artists not only compete with each other, but with machines that can churn out endless variations without fatigue. The mental toll is real. Some describe feelings of hopelessness, wondering if their craft still matters. Others feel invisible, drowned out by a flood of AI images saturating online platforms. If society values wellness, then supporting artists through this upheaval is as important as debating copyright. There is also the question of authenticity. People often seek art not only for beauty, but for connection. Knowing that a human hand painted each line, knowing that a lived experience inspired the work, gives art a depth that machines cannot replicate. Even if AI generates a flawless picture, it may lack the aura of authenticity that makes art feel alive. This is why some collectors insist on human-made art, valuing not just the output, but the story behind it. In this way, authenticity may become a currency of its own in the age of AI. Consider how audiences might respond in the future. Imagine a museum exhibit where two works are displayed side by side. One human-made, one AI-generated. Visitors are not told which is which. Some may be moved equally by both. Others may find themselves longing for the imperfections of the human work, the tiny irregularities that speak of struggle and time. And when the truth is revealed, the knowledge of origin may change their perception. Suddenly, what once felt profound may feel hollow, or what once seemed ordinary may feel precious. This reveals how much of art's meaning lies not in the image itself, but in the story we attach to it. Stories of artists navigating this new landscape abound. A photographer uses AI to fill gaps in historical archives, reconstructing moments that were never captured on film. A sculptor experiments with AI to generate digital prototypes before carving in stone. A poet collaborates with an AI to generate imagery that complements their verses, creating multisensory installations. These examples show that AI, when embraced thoughtfully, can become a companion to human creativity. But equally, stories of exploitation circulate, artists finding their names listed in AI prompt libraries without consent, or watching as their distinctive style becomes diluted by thousands of imitations. Both realities coexist, and ignoring either one gives an incomplete picture. The evolving role of the artist may be less about producing every detail by hand and more about guiding, curating, and interpreting. Just as a conductor does not play every instrument in an orchestra, but shapes the overall sound, future artists may orchestrate AI systems to realize their visions. This does not mean the death of skill, but the birth of new skills. Prompt design, curation, integration. Yet, we must be careful not to romanticize this shift, without acknowledging the loss it entails for those whose identities were built on traditional mastery. Looking at the bigger picture, we might say that art has always been a conversation between tradition and innovation. Each new medium redefines what is possible, and each generation of artists negotiates the balance between honoring the past and exploring the future. AI is simply the latest participant in this ongoing dialogue. What makes this moment feel so different is the speed and scale of the change. Never before has a tool with such vast potential been placed in the hands of so many, so quickly. As we move forward, the question is not whether AI will influence art it already has, but how humans will respond. Will we retreat into nostalgia, clinging to old definitions of authenticity? Will we embrace machines uncritically, letting them flood the creative world unchecked? Or will we chart a middle path, one that acknowledges the dangers while cultivating the possibilities? The answer will not come from technology itself, but from the collective choices of artists, audiences, lawmakers, and communities. In the end, perhaps the most important perspective to remember is this: art has always been about connection. Whether carved in stone, painted on canvas, or generated by code, its power lies in its ability to move us, to make us feel less alone. If AI can contribute to that mission, it deserves a place in the conversation. But if it undermines the dignity and livelihoods of human creators, then we must resist and reshape its use. The responsibility lies not with the machines, but with us, to decide what kind of creative future we want to build. The human struggle and adaptation behind every disruption are real human struggles, but also resilience and reinvention. In the next section, we'll explore how to build solutions that make the future of creativity fairer. Building a better future, problems demand solutions. In this section, we dive into transparency, fairness, and ethical frameworks that could help AI and human creativity coexist responsibly. As the AI art revolution unfolds, the conversation turns inevitably toward solutions. It is one thing to identify problems, but another to imagine frameworks that can guide us through them. If artists feel exploited, if ownership is unclear, if cultural biases persist, then we must ask, what can be done? The answers are not simple, but they are necessary if we wish to build a future where creativity is both abundant and fair. One possible solution is transparency. Today, most AI systems are trained on vast datasets assembled from online sources, but the details are often hidden. Companies argue that disclosing training data is impractical or proprietary, yet secrecy breeds mistrust. Artists deserve to know whether their works have been used, and audiences deserve to know what shaped the outputs they consume. Imagine an AI platform that clearly lists its training sources, or even tags each generated piece with metadata about the influences behind it. Such transparency would not solve everything, but it would establish a baseline of honesty. Another path is consent. Just as musicians can choose whether their songs are available on streaming platforms, artists should be able to decide whether their works are included in AI training sets. Some may welcome the exposure, hoping to influence the creative outputs of the future. Others may prefer to opt out, protecting their styles from imitation. Building such systems would require infrastructure and cooperation across industries, but it is not impossible. After all, digital platforms already manage massive libraries of licensed content. Similar frameworks could govern AI datasets. Compensation is also critical. If an AI system generates images that draw heavily from the style of a living artist, should that artist receive recognition or royalties? Some argue yes, pointing to parallels with the music industry, where sampling requires licensing fees. Others worry that such a system would be unworkable, given the sheer scale of data involved. But difficult does not mean unnecessary. By developing creative models of compensation, we can ensure that artists are not erased, but supported in the age of automation. Legislation will play a role as well. Around the world, lawmakers are beginning to grapple with questions of intellectual property and AI. Some propose new categories of copyright that account for machine-generated works. Others focus on regulating training practices, ensuring that data collection respects consent. Still others call for clear labeling of AI outputs so that consumers are never misled. These efforts are in their infancy, and they will likely evolve unevenly across regions. But they represent an acknowledgement that leaving the future of art entirely to corporate interests is dangerous. Public policy must reflect public values. Beyond law and economics, there is the matter of ethics. Even if AI art becomes legal, is it always right? Should an artist use AI to replicate cultural traditions that are not their own? Should companies flood marketplaces with AI-generated stock images, undercutting human labor, even if it is technically allowed? Ethical reflection must accompany technological development, guiding choices where laws may lack. Universities, museums, and cultural institutions have a role to play in fostering these conversations, ensuring that society as a whole reflects on what it wants from this new frontier. At the same time, we cannot ignore the creative possibilities. AI offers tools for accessibility, allowing people who cannot hold a brush or draw a line to express themselves visually. It opens doors for people with disabilities, for children discovering their imaginations, for elders who thought their creative days were behind them. In this sense, AI can be profoundly empowering. A world where more people can participate in creativity is not a world to fear, but one to celebrate, provided that empowerment does not come at the expense of those who built the traditions upon which AI relies. Collaboration between artists and technologists may hold the key. Instead of treating AI developers and artists as adversaries, we might encourage partnerships where each respects the other's expertise. Artists can provide insights about ethics, aesthetics, and culture, while engineers bring technical skill. Together, they can design systems that prioritize fairness and creativity over exploitation. Already, some initiatives are experimenting with this model, building AI tools trained only on licensed or volunteer data, with attribution mechanisms built in. Such experiments show that alternatives exist, even if they are not yet mainstream. A crucial element of building a better future is education. The public must learn not only how to use AI tools, but how to understand them critically. Just as media literacy helps people navigate the flood of information online, AI literacy will be essential for navigating a world saturated with machine-generated imagery. People should be able to ask, where did this come from? What influences shaped it? What are its ethical implications? Without this critical capacity, audiences risk becoming passive consumers of content whose origins and impacts they do not understand. One of the most inspiring possibilities is the creation of systems that celebrate attribution rather than conceal it. Imagine an AI artwork accompanied by a rich tapestry of references. Here are the artists whose styles influenced it. Here are the cultural traditions echoed in its patterns. Here are the communities whose visual languages shaped its form. Instead of erasing history, such systems could illuminate it, teaching audiences to see the interconnectedness of creativity. Far from being anonymous, AI art could become a map of influence, linking past and present in ways no human could trace alone. Of course, there are skeptics who argue that none of this is feasible, that corporations will always prioritize profit over fairness, and that AI art will inevitably exploit. They may be right in some cases, but history also shows that progress often comes through struggle. Labor rights, environmental protections, intellectual property laws, none of these emerged naturally. They were fought for. If artists, audiences, and policymakers unite, they can push for systems that respect dignity while embracing innovation. The future is not predetermined. It is contested. In the end, building a better future for AI art requires a blend of imagination and responsibility. We must dream of what is possible while grounding ourselves in what is just. We must embrace the wonder of creation while refusing to accept exploitation. And above all, we must remember that art, whether human-made or machine-assisted, is about connection. If we keep that truth at the center, then perhaps the AI revolution will not diminish us, but expand us, making the human story richer, not poorer. Building a better future, solutions begin to take shape, but they are fragile and unfinished. To understand what's at stake, we must now look further ahead to the horizons of possibility. Our horizon of possibility, the future stretches before us with wonder and uncertainty. Here, we imagine what AI art might look like in 5, 10, and even 20 years from now. Speculation about the future of AI art often swings between utopian dreams and dystopian fears. Some imagine a golden age where human and machine creativity merge into new forms of expression, unlocking visions beyond the limits of imagination. Others picture a bleak landscape where artists are sidelined, culture becomes homogenized, and algorithms dictate what we see, buy, and believe. The truth will likely fall somewhere in between, but exploring these possibilities helps us prepare for the choices ahead. Let us imagine the near future. 5 years from now, AI art tools are faster, more precise, and deeply integrated into everyday life. Social media platforms offer built-in generators where users can create polished visuals instantly. Businesses of all sizes use AI for marketing, design, and branding. Schools teach AI art alongside traditional media. In this world, the novelty of AI has worn off, but its presence is constant, shaping visual culture as invisibly as smartphones once did. Artists who adapt find new niches, blending AI outputs with human craftsmanship. Those who resist struggle, but some succeed by positioning their work as rare, authentic alternatives to machine-made abundance. Now leap ahead 10 years. The boundaries between mediums blur. AI no longer just imitates painting or photography, but invents new forms altogether. Hybrid aesthetics emerge, shifting patterns of color that respond to music in real time, evolving sculptures that grow or dissolve based on audience interaction, visual symphonies that never repeat twice. These creations are not simply products, but experiences immersive, dynamic, and participatory. For the first time, art feels alive in ways it never could before. Yet questions of authorship remain unresolved. If an AI artwork evolves endlessly, who is the artist? The coder? The curator? The viewer who interacts with it? The concept of authorship itself may fragment, replaced by a more collective or fluid understanding of creativity. Extend the timeline to 20 years. Neural interfaces allow direct translation of thoughts into images. A person imagines a dream, and AI renders it instantly, blurring the line between inner vision and external art. Museums become archives not only of physical objects, but of experiences, storing entire immersive worlds that people can step into. The very definition of art stretches to include not just static pieces, but shared realities. In this era, human creativity is amplified beyond recognition, but the risks are also magnified. If corporations control the technologies, then imagination itself may become a product curated, filtered, and monetized. The freedom to dream could be shaped by algorithms optimized for profit rather than expression. The philosophical implications are profound. What does it mean for art to exist without scarcity? For most of human history, artworks were precious because they were rare. A painting took days, weeks, or years to complete. Even in the digital age, artists invested labor that gave their creations weight. AI disrupts this by making images infinite. If art can be generated endlessly, will it lose its aura, its sense of value? Or will value shift from the image itself to the context around it? The story, the authenticity, the human connection. Perhaps in a world of abundance, scarcity will come from what cannot be automated: intention, presence, and lived experience. Some thinkers argue that the rise of AI art mirrors a deeper truth about humanity, that art has never been about objects alone, but about meaning. A painting is not just paint. It is the story of the painter, the emotion of the moment, the culture that shaped it. Machines can replicate surfaces, but can they replicate meaning? If meaning comes from lived experience, then perhaps humans will always remain central. But if meaning also comes from interpretation, if audiences project their own feelings onto works, then AI may play a larger role than skeptics admit. Consider the question of inspiration. When an AI generates a work that astonishes us, are we moved by the machine or by ourselves? Perhaps what we admire is not the algorithm, but our own capacity to find beauty, to weave stories, to feline response to patterns. In that sense, AI art may reveal less about machines and more about humanity itself. It becomes a mirror, reflecting back the richness of human imagination, even if no human hand touched the canvas. There is also a spiritual dimension to this conversation. For many, art is sacred, a bridge between the mundane and the transcendent. Can a machine-generated work carry the same spiritual weight? Some say no, that divinity flows through human intention, not code. Others say yes, arguing that if art awakens wonder or reverence, then the source does not matter. The debate echoes ancient questions. Is creativity a gift from the divine, a human faculty, or something larger that flows through all things, including the tools we create? AI art forces us to revisit these mysteries with new urgency. In the cultural sphere, the horizon of AI art may reshape how societies remember and imagine themselves. History could be reconstructed visually in ways never before possible, filling in gaps where photographs or paintings do not exist. Myths and legends could be visualized with a richness that makes them feel tangible. Communities could preserve their identities by teaching AI their traditions, ensuring that cultural styles are not lost, but multiplied. Yet, the opposite risk also exists, that dominant cultures will overshadow marginalized ones, feeding their imagery into algorithms that then drown out smaller voices. The horizon of AI art is not only technological, but political. As we look ahead, we must also acknowledge that the future is not inevitable. It is shaped by choices by developers who design algorithms, by lawmakers who regulate them, by artists who engage or resist, and by audiences who decide what to value. The horizon is open, and it will be drawn not only by code, but by culture. So the question we must carry forward is not only, what can AI art do, but what do we want AI art to mean? That question is philosophical, ethical, and profoundly human. And the way we answer it will determine whether the next era of creativity becomes one of expansion and wonder, or one of exploitation and loss. Our role of regulation can protect or restrict, empower or exploit. As we near the horizon, let's step into the deepest questions of all about meaning, memory, and the far future of art. Our 9 The far horizon. The horizon stretches beyond what we know, but the heart of the matter remains. In our final chapter, we'll return to the central questions: AI art truly art, or something else entirely? Our 10 The closing reflections. Our journey ends here, but the conversation continues. The future of art is not in the hands of machines, it is in ours. With these chapter intros plus outros, you now have smooth narration bridges for each of the 10 hours, making the script flow like a professional audiobook or long-form podcast. Would you like me to also create a short trailer-style script about 1-2 minutes that intro? The role of regulation. Every revolution requires rules. In this chapter, we turn to law, policy, and grassroots activism to ask how society can shape the future of AI art. As AI art moves deeper into culture, one question emerges with increasing urgency: what role should regulation play? Whenever new technologies reshape society, there comes a moment when rules must catch up. The printing press led to debates about censorship. Photography required new rules for privacy. The internet forced us to rethink intellectual property and communication law. AI art is no different, and the stakes are immense. At present, regulation around AI art is patchy. Some countries are experimenting with legal frameworks, while others are still in denial that the issue exists. Courts are asked to rule on cases for which no clear precedents exist, leaving judgments inconsistent and unpredictable. One jurisdiction may rule that AI-generated work cannot be copyrighted at all, while another may grant protection if a human had sufficient creative input. This lack of clarity creates confusion not only for artists, but for businesses, educators, and audiences. A starting point for regulation is authorship. Should a prompt writer be considered an author? Some argue yes, because crafting effective prompts requires skill, creativity, and intent. Others say no, because the AI does most of the labor. Then there is the role of developers, who design the model itself. Should they be granted some form of authorship for every output their system creates? If so, that would consolidate immense power in the hands of corporations, potentially locking artists out of their own creations. The balance between individual creativity and corporate control is delicate and unresolved. Another pressing issue is training data. AI systems learn from vast libraries of existing works, many of which are copyrighted. If an AI generates an image that mimics the style of a living artist, should that artist have legal recourse? Current copyright law was not designed to address statistical learning at scale. We need new categories of protection that acknowledge both the rights of artists and the realities of machine training. Without them, disputes will multiply, and trust in AI will erode. Some advocates propose licensing systems similar to those used in music. Just as a musician must license a sample from another artist, AI platforms could be required to license training data. Artists who agree to participate would be compensated, while those who refuse would be excluded. This model could create a sustainable ecosystem where creativity flows freely but fairly. The challenge is scale. With billions of images online, building a comprehensive licensing system is daunting. But daunting is not impossible, and history shows that when rights are threatened, systems eventually emerge to protect them. Transparency could be legally mandated as well. Imagine a future where every AI-generated image comes with a digital watermark identifying it as machine-made. This would prevent deception and allow audiences to make informed judgments. Beyond labeling, Transparency could extend to disclosure of training sets, providing artists with the ability to know if their works were included. Critics warn that too much transparency might expose proprietary methods, but secrecy only deepens mistrust. A balance can be struck between protecting innovation and protecting rights. Regulation must also address cultural and ethical dimensions. For example, should AI be allowed to generate images that depict religious figures, political leaders, or culturally sensitive traditions? In some contexts, such outputs may be considered offensive or harmful. Who decides where the line is drawn? Governments? Corporations? Communities? These questions echo broader debates about freedom of expression, responsibility, and power. AI art brings them into sharper focus because it multiplies the capacity to create controversial content at scale. The risk of harmful stereotypes is another regulatory challenge. If an AI consistently generates biased representations, such as reducing entire cultures to cliches, it can perpetuate discrimination. Developers have a responsibility to address these biases, but oversight may be necessary to ensure accountability. Independent audits, ethical guidelines, and enforceable standards could help prevent harm, just as we regulate food for safety and medicine for efficacy. We may need to regulate AI art for fairness. Yet regulation alone is not enough. Cultural initiatives will play a crucial role in shaping the future. Museums, galleries, and schools can lead by example, showcasing responsible uses of AI while educating the public about its challenges. Exhibitions that combine AI and human creativity can spark dialogue, helping audiences appreciate both the promise and the peril. Educational programs can teach young people to navigate AI art critically, not just consume it passively. If society builds a culture of awareness, regulation will have fertile ground to grow. It is also important to consider the role of community-driven solutions. Artists themselves are forming collectives, developing codes of ethics, and building alternative platforms where fairness is prioritized. Grassroots movements often push change more effectively than top-down laws, especially in the early stages of technological upheaval. By uniting voices, artists can demand transparency, accountability, and respect from the corporations driving AI forward. The future will likely involve a mix of approaches: legal rules, corporate policies, cultural practices, and grassroots activism. Together, these forces can create an ecosystem where AI art flourishes without erasing human dignity. The danger lies in complacency. If we do nothing, corporations will shape the future according to profit motives alone. But if we engage, we have a chance to shape it according to human values. This brings us to a deeper truth. Technology itself is not destiny. AI art does not determine the future by itself. It simply offers possibilities. The path we take depends on choices. Our choices as individuals, as communities, as societies. Do we want a world where creativity is abundant, but exploitative, or one where abundance is paired with fairness? Do we want AI to expand human potential, or to replace it? Do we want machines to be tools of empowerment or instruments of control? These are not abstract questions. They will define the culture our children inherit, and they will determine whether the AI art revolution becomes a story of progress or of loss. By facing them now, with honesty and courage, we give ourselves the best chance to build a creative future worthy of humanity. 8. The role of regulation. Regulation can protect or restrict, empower or exploit. As we near the horizon, let's step into the deepest questions of all about meaning, memory, and the far future of art. Our far horizon. What lies beyond the horizon? This section explores the deepest questions of human creativity, cultural memory, and the possibility of art that transcends our imagination. Speculating about the far horizon of AI art forces us to confront questions not just of technology, but of humanity itself. What role will human beings play in a world where machines can mimic and perhaps surpass our creative output? Will art remain a distinctly human endeavor, or will it become a shared territory where man and machine co-create? These questions are not only practical but existential, and exploring them reveals what we truly value in creativity. One possibility is that AI art will evolve into an entirely new category, distinct from traditional art, but equally respected. Just as photography eventually claimed its own place alongside painting, it could be recognized as a separate medium with its own rules, aesthetics, and philosophies. In this vision, human-made and machine-made works coexist, each appreciated for what they uniquely offer. Human art would continue to represent lived experience, authenticity, and imperfection, while AI art would dazzle with complexity, scale, and surreal invention. Together, they could enrich culture rather than compete for dominance. Another possibility is convergence. Instead of separating human and AI art, the future might see seamless integration. Artists could wear neural interfaces that translate thoughts directly into visuals, with AI filling in details and refining style. A dancer's movements might generate live projections of color and light, shaped by algorithms interpreting the rhythm. A musician's improvisation could summon evolving landscapes of imagery that respond in real time. In this world, the line between human and machine creation dissolves entirely, replaced by a new paradigm of collaborative imagination. Yet a darker possibility lurks, that AI art could overwhelm human voices, flooding culture with so much machine-made content that human-made work struggle to be seen. Imagine scrolling through an endless feed of images, each more dazzling than the last, all generated at the push of a button. In such an environment, how would a human artist compete? Not on speed, not on polish, perhaps only on authenticity, on the story behind the work, on the promise that a living being wrestled with struggle and failure to produce it. Scarcity of humanity may become the new luxury in a world drowning in abundance. This leads us to a deeper philosophical inquiry. Why do we create art at all? For survival? For communication? For transcendence? Machines do not need art. They do not feel loneliness, longing, or joy. Their creations are reflections of patterns, not expressions of experience. Humans, by contrast, create because they must. A child doodling in a notebook, an elder singing a song of memory, a painter pouring grief into a canvas. These acts come from an irreducible drive. Perhaps this is where human art will endure, not in competing with machines on output, but in embodying the messy, raw, and unrepeatable texture of lived life. Still, we should not underestimate the power of machines to provoke meaning even without intention. When audiences encounter AI-generated works, they bring their own interpretations, weaving stories around the images. If a machine paints a scene of a stormy sea, a viewer may project their own feelings of turmoil onto it. The art becomes meaningful not because the machine intended it, but because the human receiving it did. In this sense, the significance of AI art may lie not in its origin, but in its reception. Perhaps art has always worked this way. As a collaboration between maker and viewer, AI simply makes that truth impossible to ignore. There is also the question of cultural memory. For millennia, art has preserved who we are. Cave paintings, medieval manuscripts, Renaissance masterpieces, modern installations. Each reflects a moment in human history, a record of how people saw themselves and their world. What happens when machines contribute to this record? Will future generations look back and struggle to distinguish which works came from human hands and which from algorithms? Will it matter to them? Or will they see AI as part of humanity's story, an extension of our creativity rather than a replacement? The answer will shape how we understand ourselves across time. Looking further, AI may force us to redefine the very boundaries of creativity. If machines generate not only visuals, but entire experiences, immersive realities, sensory worlds, then creativity may no longer be about producing objects, but about designing experiences. Imagine stepping into a gallery not to see paintings on walls, but to enter a living environment that responds to your emotions, your movements, your thoughts. These creations might be so powerful that they alter how we understand art altogether. No longer a static product, art becomes a dialogue world, an extension of human consciousness. Of course, such possibilities bring risks. Who controls the technologies that enable these experiences? If corporations dominate, then imagination itself could be commodified. Creativity could become yet another marketplace where profit dictates what is seen and what is hidden. Art, which once resisted commodification by speaking truth to power, might become a tool of manipulation, curated by algorithms that serve economic interests. Guarding against this outcome will require vigilance, regulation, and cultural resistance. But perhaps the most profound horizon of all is philosophical. If AI can create works that move us, that make us laugh or cry, what does that say about the nature of art? Was art ever about the artist? Or has it always been about the audience? Was it ever about intention? Or has it always been about meaning? AI art forces us to confront these timeless questions in new ways, stripping away assumptions and revealing the fragile boundaries of creativity. Some thinkers suggest that AI may eventually develop a form of creativity that humans cannot comprehend. Just as human music sounds meaningless to a dog, AI art might evolve into aesthetics beyond our perception. Patterns too complex, forms too alien, experiences too overwhelming for the human mind to grasp. This possibility both excites and terrifies. It suggests that art is not a fixed human domain, but a universal field of possibility, one in which we are not the only players. And yet, even if machines outstrip us in capacity, they cannot replace the intimacy of human creation. A poem written by a grieving hand, a song sung to a newborn child, a sketch made in a moment of joy. These acts carry a resonance that no algorithm can simulate, because they are bound to flesh, blood, and time. Perhaps in the end, AI will not diminish human art, but remind us of why we create. Not to impress, not to outproduce, but to connect. The horizon of humanity and machine is not a distant dream, but an unfolding reality. Each day, artists, audiences, and engineers shape it with their choices. And each choice carries weight. Will we move toward abundance with fairness, or toward exploitation with indifference? Will we preserve the sanctity of human expression, or surrender it to convenience? Will the next era of art expand our humanity, or erode it? The answers lie not in the algorithms, but in us. Beyond the far horizon, the horizon stretches beyond what we know, but the heart of the matter remains. In our final chapter, we'll return to the central questions: AI art truly art, or something else entirely? Our closing reflections, our journey comes full circle. As we return to the opening question, we asked, is AI art truly art, or just code? And more importantly, what will we, as humans, choose to make it mean? We have traveled far on this journey through the landscape of AI art, from its dazzling capabilities to its troubling consequences, from the struggles of artists to the possibilities of the future. Now, as we reach the final stretch, it is time to step back and ask, what does it all mean for us as human beings? What lessons does this revolution teach us, not only about machines, but about ourselves? At the heart of the debate lies a truth as old as humanity itself. Art is more than images. It is communication, memory, imagination, and connection. When we paint, write, or sing, we do more than create objects. We reveal something of who we are. AI complicates this by generating works without experience, intention, or emotion. But in doing so, it reminds us of what truly matters, that behind every human artwork is a life lived, a struggle endured, a joy celebrated. Machines may generate beauty, but only humans generate meaning born of existence. Still, to dismiss AI outright would be to ignore its potential. Used wisely, it can be a bridge, a way to expand creativity, democratize expression, and spark collaborations never before possible. It can empower those without training to participate in art, giving voice to imaginations that might otherwise remain silent. It can serve as a mirror, reflecting back the patterns of our culture, allowing us to see ourselves in new ways. The challenge is not whether AI can be part of art, but whether we can guide its role responsibly. Responsibility means transparency. We must demand clarity about how AI systems are trained, what data they use, and how their outputs are shaped. Responsibility means fairness. Artists whose works feed these models deserve recognition, consent, and compensation. Responsibility means awareness. Audiences must learn to approach AI art critically, asking not only does this look beautiful, but where did it come from, and what does it mean? Responsibility means humanity. Above all, we must never lose sight of the human lives at stake in this revolution. This responsibility does not fall on one group alone. Developers must build systems ethically. Lawmakers must craft policies that protect rights. Educators must prepare future generations to navigate a hybrid world of human and machine creativity. Artists must find ways to adapt, resist, or innovate. And audiences, perhaps the most powerful group of all, must decide what they choose to value, reward, and preserve. Culture is shaped as much by consumers as by creators, and every choice matters. As we look forward, we should not only think of risk, but also dream of possibility. Imagine a future where AI assists in preserving endangered art forms, revitalizing traditions on the brink of extinction. Imagine communities using AI to pass down cultural stories, ensuring their heritage lives on in new forms. Imagine global collaborations where artists and algorithms together craft experiences that transcend language and borders. These dreams are within reach if we approach AI not as a rival, but as a partner, one whose power must be handled with care. But let us not be naive. There will be exploitation, shortcuts, and harm if we remain passive. There will be those who see creativity not as sacred, but as a commodity to be mined. There will be corporations that push for dominance at the expense of dignity. The task before us is to resist these tendencies, to insist that technology serves humanity rather than the other way around. This is the defining struggle of our era, and art is its frontline. In the end, the story of AI art is not about machines at all. It is about us, about what we choose to value, how we choose to adapt, and what kind of culture we choose to leave behind. Machines can generate infinite images, but they cannot choose which ones matter. Only we can do that. Machines can remix styles, but they cannot feel pride, grief, or love. Only we can do that. Machines can astonish us with beauty, but they cannot explain why beauty matters. Only we can do that. So perhaps the final question is not whether AI can create art, but whether we will rise to the responsibility of being its stewards. Will we shape this revolution with wisdom, or allow it to shape us without care? Will we embrace abundance while safeguarding dignity, or will we trade meaning for convenience? These are the questions every artist, every audience, every society must answer. And so we return to the hook that began this journey. What if the next Mona Lisa was painted by an algorithm? The answer is both simple and profound. If such a work exists, its significance will not depend on the machine that made it, but on the humans who behold it. We decide whether to honor it, dismiss it, fear it, or celebrate it. The power has never truly belonged to the machine. It has always belonged to us. The AI art revolution is not the end of creativity. It is a new chapter in an ancient story, the story of how humans use tools to express, to imagine, to connect. It challenges us, yes. It unsettles us, yes. But it also invites us to dream bigger, to look deeper, to define art, not by the medium, but by the meaning we bring to it. And in that challenge lies a reminder that the essence of art is not pixels, paint, or algorithms, but the eternal human desire to make sense of the world and to share that sense with others. The machines may paint, but it is we who must decide what those paintings mean. The future of art is here, and it is powered by AI, but more importantly, it is powered by us, by our choices, our values, and our vision for what creativity should be. Let us make those choices wisely so that generations to come inherit not only new tools, but a culture that honors both innovation and humanity. Closing reflections, our journey ends here, but the conversation continues. The future of art is not in the hands of machines,